I got asked to cover a frankly really sensitive and upsetting subject. So if you don't want to hear about the federal government's plans to cull 450,000 owls in the Pacific Northwest, this may not be the story for you. You may be like, okay, Angela, you mostly make political content and like permaculture gardening content. Why is it that you have any expertise to speak on this issue at all? Well, one, it was a request from a viewer, but two, my degree is in biology, but my focus of study is in ornithology, particularly avian cognition. I've been a certified permitted raptor handler. I've worked in wild bird rehab. Even though this is no longer a field that I work in, I do feel like I have an opinion to share, and it's one that is based out of experience, education, and expertise. And this topic, the plan that our federal government intends to roll out to cull hundreds of thousands of barred owls, that may be upsetting to some people, and my opinion about it may be somewhat controversial. Now, this isn't really a new issue, but the federal government released a plan back in 2024 to deal with the multiplicity of factors that make barred owls a concern west of the Cascades. But it's been coming up in the news a lot more since October, especially because Republican Senator John Kennedy keeps raising the issue with kind of faux outrage. Lest you not forget, John Kennedy is a senator from Louisiana, and we are discussing a wildlife management issue in the Pacific Northwest. So you may say, what kind of heartless bastards are wanting to kill hundreds of thousands of owls? After all, aren't raptors protected in the United States? Yeah, it's actually illegal for you not only to injure or kill a bird of prey, it is illegal to own any body part of theirs, including feathers. So how is it that the federal government is planning on killing hundreds of thousands of barred owls over the next 30 years? They plan to take about 15,000 a year for up to 30 years. So it's not like they're coming in and culling, almost 500,000 in 1 year. Nonetheless, this plan is quite controversial because people see, especially barred owls, they have these like big eyes and they just have this sweet round face. When I did wild bird rehab, I have to say barred owls were probably my favorite. I know they have a reputation for being aggressive toward humans in the wild, and I'll get into that in a second. But in terms of doing rehab, I found that barred owls were the snuggliest. They reminded me a lot of cockatoos in terms of their need for physical affection and their sweet temperament during rehab. Very, very cuddly, very affectionate. Night and day difference between a barred owl and a barn owl, who... These guys are never going to be your friends. Barn owls always scared me a little bit. While federal law protects all birds of prey from you and me, that doesn't actually mean all birds of prey in the United States are threatened or endangered in any way. And when we're looking at the barred owl specifically, its original range ended at the Mississippi River. It wasn't until the 1900s that it began to cross and extend its range westward. And we could talk about all of the reasons for the expansion of its range and how much humans and how we altered the landscape impacted their ability to move west. But they didn't cross the Mississippi and then the Rocky Mountains and then the Cascades until quite recently. And out here in the Pacific Northwest and much of the West Coast, the barred owl is actually listed as an invasive species. This is not considered its native habitat. What happens is that the barred owl has encroached on the habitat of the northern spotted owl, which has been in big trouble for a real long time. The invasive barred owl is larger, more territorial, more aggressive, and it outcompetes the more timid spotted owl for food and nesting habitat, etc., etc. The presence of the barred owl and the expansion of its range and population size is a significant threat to the northern spotted owl. So the Fish and Wildlife Service proposed this plan to cull barred owls in an attempt to control their population and to give the spotted owl some breathing room. And obviously this plan is going to be controversial anytime you're talking about culling wildlife, especially wildlife, or not even wildlife. We could talk about culling cats in another video. I'm happy to have that conversation and piss a bunch of people off. But when you talk about culling animals as a wildlife management strategy, if those animals are cute and cuddly, adorable, you're going to elicit a really large negative public response. If you talk about methods to control invasive species that are not so adorable to humans, like Scotch broom or zebra mussels or spotted lanternfly, you're not going to get the same kind of pushback from the public. That's just the reality of the situation. So there's been a really large public outcry, and I think that outcry is compounded. People's outrage is compounded because they are being fed some misinformation, right? I said earlier in the beginning of this video that The barred owl in the wild can be somewhat aggressive. In fact, there are a lot of places in the Pacific Northwest, if you go hiking, there are warning signs like, hey, this is where there are resident barred owls, and they may come for you on the trail. They may swoop at you, with their talons out. They may come in hot if you're hiking on this trail. And there are so many reports of aggressive owls going for hikers. And it's almost like a joke in certain parts of the Pacific Northwest that when you go hiking, you got to be prepared. There's going to be an owl swooping in on you. I have been hiking in a lot of places that have these signs. I have seen barred owls. I've never personally been dive bombed by a barred owl. And it's not even really in particularly remote areas, right? In the Portland metro area, in some of our third spaces, some of our parks, barred owls are resident and they will go after joggers. They're particularly known for going for people's hats. They're attracted to their hats. I don't know if you have that much interaction with owls or know that much about owl biology and intelligence, but most of their skull is taken up with their eyeballs and their visual processing. They're not the sharpest tacks in the box. So if you want to think about the motivations for going for these joggers, they're very much driven by sight and also a desire to protect their territory. I know you may be like, what the hell's a 2.5-pound owl gonna do to me? Y'all, the pressure they can exert with their talons is 500 pounds per square inch. You don't fuck around with a raptor. Their grip is more than 10 times as strong as yours, and they come in hot and they're going to take a chunk out of you. But anyway, okay, not to sensationalize them, because it's like, there's a couple dozen documented cases. But this is part of the rumor that's been swirling, like, oh, they're going to cull these owls because they're aggressive. There, I think, has been some promotion of this myth because there was a Netflix show that I didn't watch, but people are talking about it online, called The Staircase, in which the claim is that Michael Peterson's wife, Kathleen Peterson, may have died after being attacked by a massive owl. Internet theory is the sensationalized talk, like this is not the reason that the Fish and Wildlife Service is doing this culling or has planned to do this culling over the next 30 years. It's specifically about protecting the northern spotted owl. So one of my viewers asked me what my opinion is. I am fully in support of this plan. I understand that it's controversial. Owls are adorable, absolutely. But when we're looking at wildlife management, it's not actually about us as people and our feelings. It's not about our distress over seeing cute animals be culled. Like that's not the issue. It's about conserving, protecting wildlife. And maybe it would help folks to know that the Sierra Club and the Center for Biological Diversity and Earth Justice are also all three in support of this plan. But once again, it is animal rights groups like PETA and Animal Wellness Action and other kind of like vegan animal welfare activist groups that are opposed to this action and making a big stink about it. And I think that some of these groups are also spreading this misinformation about the reasons for this wildlife management plan. And I don't have time for a long and protracted discussion here about why so many animal rights groups focus on specific species, again, that are cute and cuddly and appealing to humans, and miss the broader ecological implications, the fact that other species are going to be significantly, detrimentally, negatively impacted if we choose to do nothing. So maybe that's a subject for another video, but I did get asked about what my opinion was about this plan to cull the barred owls, and as sad as it is, I do think that it is necessary. The northern spotted owl is in real bad shape, and the two top reasons why are habitat loss caused directly by us, and we've had a hell of a time mitigating that habitat loss. And the second reason is the encroachment of the barred owl into spotted owl territory. Addressing both of those as best as we can within a system that's terribly flawed, that is going to prioritize profit for people and human development overall. We have a responsibility to try and protect the spotted owl and to make sure that they are around for generations to come. This is a sensible, well thought out plan. I understand the controversy, but I'm fully in support of it.